Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I just wanted to share that one of our uh, panelists is actually not here just yet, having some technical difficulties, so we'll have him introduce himself when he arrives. First, let me say that I am Tania Jordan, Director of Intercultural Student Affairs, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I want to just tell folks a little bit about Tough Topic Tuesdays. So we started this series in the spring, and it takes place on Tuesdays. And the idea is that we have a discussion. We pre-select folks to have a mini discussion about a topic that is tough, right? And then we open it up for folks who are watching the fishbowl conversation to reflect and to add their thoughts towards the end. And we've been recording these. We typically, have a small audience. We don't have a huge audience, but we love to have folks here with us. And we invite folks to participate in any way that feels comfortable. And we'll prompt you when we are looking for your participation. So our plan is to record the conversation. If anybody has any issues with that, you can let us know and we can focus on just recording, or when we edit the recording and put it out there, we can just show the part where the pre-selected panelists are speaking. And then that way, we want folks to feel comfortable to participate. And then the other thing I want to tell you is that you can reach any of us at any time using the chat feature directly. And if you have any questions or comments at any time, you can put them in the chat feature as well. And before we go any further, I want to have our panelists go around and introduce themselves. And I'm going to steal our little, where's everyone? Everyone in meeting. Okay, perfect. There you go. Put your names in the chat and just go ahead and introduce yourselves in that order.
Hi everyone, I'm Jaleesa. I am the multicultural specialist here at Emerson, which means that I work for both intercultural student affairs and also Emerson Counseling and Psychological Services. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I've been here for 4 years. And I will hand it off to Julie.
Thanks, Jaleesa. I'm Julie Avis Rogers. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the campus chaplain and the director of spiritual and religious life at Emerson. And when we are on campus, I get to share the 4th floor of 172 Tremont Street with the Office of Intercultural Student Affairs. So I'm really excited we're all together virtually this afternoon. I'll pass it over to Emmy.
Hello. Oh, good. I'm not muted. Whew. Hi, I'm Emmy. I'm the Assistant Director for International Student Career Services at the Career Development Center. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I've been at Emerson since February 2018. And when we are on campus, Jaleesa and I are in the same building. And I just thought about that as you said that. I'm missing everybody, but it's so good to actually connect here and see each other and share what we have in our hearts. And who's me? Jamaica.
I got you. It's me.
Who's me? I love that.
Hey, y'all. I'm Jamaica. Some of you have met. Good to see you again. Glad that you're here. I am the Assistant Director of Intercultural Student Affairs, and I use the he, hers pronouns. This October will be my 3rd year starting at Emerson.
Thank you. Thank you. So today's conversation came out of our reality that we are all currently presently living in, and the idea that we are being asked always, but especially now, to really hold multitudes, to be productive, to be powerful, to show up, to fight, and to be ourselves, all while managing through lots of challenging circumstances. And I'm not going to name them just yet. When I ask our panelists to go around and to add why they are here today and why what they bring to the conversation, we'll have some conversations then about the different things that are going on. But I wanted to share real quick before we get started a quote from Adrienne Marie Brown. It's from one of the How to Survive the End of the World podcast episodes. It was called Me Too and Transformative Justice, Part 1, and it took place on June 5th, 2018. And something that she said that sticks out for me is, I hold nuance and creative potential. I hold multitudes and I hold complexity. I know that it's not a clean line for most people. And I know that a lot of times we're asking folks to show up in these sort of clean lines. I am student at this point. I am educator at this point. I am auntie, sister, daughter, etc. And we're doing that while so many different things are happening. And it's really important that we're able to bring our whole and complete selves to any given situation. And it's not only important, it's healthy. It's the way that we stay whole. It's the way that we are our best, not only for ourselves, but for others. And sometimes it means incorporating the good and the bad at any given moment. And so before we get started, I'm actually going to ask the folks who are joining us as guests, only if you want to. You're welcome to stay with your cameras off. You don't have to introduce yourselves, but we would love to just know who you are, and maybe just a quick line, like what caught you in the advertisement for this session. Like, what was it that made you decide, I want to be there? And it could just be that you wanted to be here because, you had Jamaica or Jaleesa as a facilitator yesterday and you were like, they're dope. And then I just want to be everywhere they are. And I'm fine with that too. Or Emmy and me too. So, if y'all could share, that would be great. And again, if you don't want to, we're not going to force you to.
Hi, I'm Sully. I just read the orientation description and it sounded really interesting. So sheer curiosity brought me here.
Awesome. Love it.
Hi, I'm Jordan. I saw the tough topics thing and I really like discussing tough topics. So I decided to come.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to move into the conversation part of this event. And also, again, so this is going to be a conversation initially between Julie and Emmy and Jaleesa and Jamaica. And we're going to ask y'all for your thoughts towards the end. But at any point, you can pop into the chat and share with us your thoughts. If you have comments or questions or commentary, please just post it in there. So, first question for y'all, just how are you feeling? What is going on for you? How are you feeling today? And I'm gonna, go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
I can go first. I am feeling like I'm holding on.
My arms hurt. I was kayaking against the tide for an hour, but then on the way back it was easy, and so I felt like the waves. There were waves out there. It's really windy out there. They were bringing me back, and so that was comfortable. And I think that when I was riding those little waves, I was like kind of transported into this sort of smooth sailing space. It's been so rocky lately. And I'm just really grateful for the ups and downs of this all, and the moments of peace. Yeah, so that's how I'm feeling.
At the moment, I think I'm doing pretty well. I mean, similar to what Emmy was just saying about her day today. I think today I went out on a picnic and I was with my family, and then like it was a beautiful day outside, which was a respite for me, because I think this week in particular, I have found myself a lot more worried than I have been recently. And I think a lot of it is just with the excitement of orientation and the year starting up, I'm also just like, oh, I'm really worried about making genuine connections this year. Like, this is going to be a different way of like forming community and forming meaningful relationships. And so I've just noticed that's been like around with me all week, is this worry about that. So so I'm glad I got a little respite today, but that's been my headspace this week.
I'm pretty logical most of the times, and so queuing in with my emotions, they are pretty apparent when they appear, if that makes sense. Not that I don't have them, it's just that they're pretty extreme right now. And today's actually a really good day because it's a beautiful Sunday and I get to be around the people that I love. But I don't know, like contrasting that, it's not just the day-to-day to me, it's kind of the compound of the days for me. And so I'm kind of holding on to all those feelings at once.
I like to share with folks typically that I'm using 2 screens, and so it might look like I'm looking away from you, and I don't like that, but it's just easier for me to see on the bigger screen. I'm going to attempt to communicate over this way, but I am listening and paying attention. So thank you all for sharing that. Ooh, Kyle is here. Yay! Kyle, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Woo, woo! Okay. So, yay!
Everyone, I am so sorry, but now I am a successful Wi-Fi modem and router user and owner.
You're winning the internet today. Yes. So we had actually just started not too long ago, and we had just done introductions, and then we asked folks sort of how they're feeling today. So I want to go ahead and like have you do that. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How are you feeling?
Absolutely. Well, now I feel like I'm on top of the world after that pit of deep frustration. So that's how I'm feeling. So my name is Kyle Eber. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a senior at Emerson now, and that's terrifying. But I'm a creative writing major. I have minors with history and publishing, excuse me. I don't know if anyone else gave a fun fact, but I'm gonna give a fun fact. The love of my life is my cat Tetra, and she's right here. Oh, nope, she got scared. Okay, maybe some other time.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, everyone. So now I'm wondering if you can each talk a little bit about, so what brought you to this discussion, and maybe if you can say something about what it means to hold complicated emotions for you, maybe contradicting and competing emotions for you, and what does that mean in terms of how you show up for yourself and for others?
Those are big questions, but but I love thinking on my feet, which is to say that I am a verbal processor. So usually if I start talking, eventually most of the questions will be answered. But I'm here at this conversation because I was asked to.
Wait, did we lose Jaleesa?
Screen froze. She might refresh, hopefully.
Zoom is so
I'll
nice.
message her.
We love technology.
I thought that was my fault for a second, and I was like, no.
Okay. I could tell that I was frozen.
Okay.
How much of that did you even?
We barely heard the first line, to be completely honest.
That is totally fine. So I will just start over. So I'm on this conversation because I was asked to be. And I think that really dovetails into what Tamia was asking in terms of how you show up for community, how you show up for yourself, because this community, the people who I'm on this call with, are really important parts of my Emerson community. And when they ask me to do things, my inclination is just to say yes. And I think that when I said yes to this, I mean, weeks, so much happens in a week now. I am not in the same emotional space I was when I said yes. But one of the things that I will say about this community that makes it easy for me to show up, even when I'm holding a lot of emotions, even when it is really hard. I'm a very emotional person, and so yesterday was a really difficult day for me. But I knew that I could still come to this space and be in community with people who would make me feel like it was worth it. And so I think, in short, to not like go down the rabbit hole of this question, for me, it's easy to show up for my community when I know that my community has my back, and I know that being with my community, even though it will be an expenditure of energy in some ways, I know I will get that back in return. I'll stop there because this is what the entire conversation is about.
I want to echo what Jaleesa said about, like, you know, when you get the invite from the folks that you know have your back, it feels so welcoming and non-obligatory. There's no pressure. It's a welcome. It's an invitation. And I feel like I know I need safe space and held space for me. And the folks in this room, I feel like, have been that for me over the past year. And I want to be that for others. And, you know, for those who are coming into the space, yeah, this is just a really wonderful group of people. And, you know, to be able to share this space with others and expand it so that that community of safety and home and rest and I guess refreshing time is available even in this crazy time. So I always feel refreshed after I leave from these spaces and inspired to be that for others in spaces that I go to.
I think, I think that's phrased really well, especially when you said it's an invitation, because that's exactly like what it felt like. I was reached out by some wonderful faculty that I really, really look up to that are in this call right now. And I was like, wow, I was kind of wondering at first, like, why me? But then I think it was, well, if they think I'm the right person, then I should trust them because, they are making these decisions and, I can use my I can use my experience or anything to help others, and that's really kind of my biggest thing that I like doing for folks. So I will, and I will show up, especially because it was an invitation, and I love doing so.
Well, I was thinking about a couple of things for me, but I will just start by saying that from what Jaleesa, Emmy, and Kyle have said, I do just want to say to the new students, as you're probably getting the feeling, like, look at these faces of Jamaica, Tamia, Kyle, Emmy, and Jaleesa. These are amazing, amazing hearts at Emerson that are here for you. So I know I'm feeling that right now. But with this particular topic, I think there are two things in my mind. The first was that since the COVID-19 pandemic began, I've been very struck by how there's some days that I'm like, there is so much beauty in this strange time. I'm getting time with my family I've never had before. I'm having time for, I don't know, more spaciousness in my life and to see plants, whatever. And it's been beautiful. And then other times I'm like, this is horrible. How has this happened to the world? And I feel so a sadness and a heaviness that I'm not that acquainted with. And I know some days I've been like, which one is it? Is it the beauty or is it the sadness? And to know that it's completely both and it's everything in between that too, and to somehow get to be okay with that idea, it doesn't have to be one or the other, has just been a big theme for me. And so this idea of holding complexity was just speaking to my recent experience a lot. So that was one thing. And then the other was, I was just thinking about how something I love about orientation is the amount of positive energy and excitement and anticipation and like joy, and how that's so true. And yet we are in a really weird semester, and we're starting off the semester as we never have before. And I would imagine college is starting in a way that you did not anticipate it starting. And it's really okay to feel so bummed about that. And I loved the idea of orientation having a space to feel maybe pissed, maybe sad, maybe like, I just love that there was a space for that as well, within the excitement and the joy, because that at least speaks to how I would imagine I'd be entering this semester as a student. So those were the two things that come to my mind.
For me personally, I was just thinking about more so like the political climate of things and how the discussions that have arisen, people are telling me that I have to like choose sides. And yes, there are times where absolutely, but there are multiple opinions that I can have and multiple things that I feel and hold, and to have those things honored, because I myself am a complex being. And I guess when there are things where you, yes, have to make a choice, but there are moments where I think you can just be and feel certain things and continue to process through them. So for me, thinking about that in my own personal regards, but also with talking with students, because I love talking with students. I would love to do that all day, every day, and just kind of seeing where students are at. And a lot of students that I've had conversations with, you know, kind of much the same regard, are very like excited to start this new phase of learning, but also very like overwhelmed and scared. I'm like, oh yeah, like let's talk about it. Let's process through that together. And so for me, it was important to let ourselves just be everything that we are without any limitations or expectations in regards, and process through those things.
I love that. I love so many things that I just heard. The idea of showing up because folks who you are in community with invited you. Just the idea of invitation and wanting to sort of honor commitments and honor that, you know, you're showing up for folks who showed up for you. And then also the idea that, again, that Julie mentioned, related to starting this, whether you're a new student and you're starting the semester or you're starting the academic year as a returning student, it's a crappy way to start, right? And that's so real. And we know that folks are holding on to that, and that is, and they're being asked to do a lot while all of this is happening in the backdrop. That made me think of being a part of a new community. And so we talked about showing up for each other. So we might show up for each other because we're in community with each other. We already know each other, right? What does it mean to be sort of held and within a new community? What does it mean to be, what does it mean to just sort of exist within a new community and to sort of want to do that when it's brand new to you?
I can speak about this a little because it's something that I think I've been experiencing in a couple of different ways recently. And obviously I'm not a student at Emerson, so I can't speak to what it's like to be a part of this community coming into it as a new person, but I know that throughout the pandemic, it has given me, I'm a very introverted person, and I think in this time I've really had to challenge myself to think about new ways to create community. And one of the things that I did was I did start like an online video group of other therapists in the area to chat about the clinical issues that we're working through, and create, like, being a part of creating that new community, I guess, was interesting, and like processing it as I talk, because none of us are good at this yet. Like, this is a very unique time to be entering any community, and I think if you extend it to thinking about like Emerson, nobody at Emerson is good at creating community in COVID times yet, because this is so new. And so I do think that it gives an opportunity and ability to be on somewhat equal playing ground and be able to show up in community and create a community in ways that were not necessarily as possible before. And I think even, having said that I'm an introvert, I feel like in some ways, I mean, I'm not ecstatic that everything is on Zoom nowadays, but in some ways it does allow me to go to more things, because I don't have to deal with the stress of getting out of my house and psyching up to like put on real clothes, and like my cat doesn't get mad that I'm gone for 6 hours. And so in some ways I'm able to show up more fully because there are other barriers that are just not in the way that they were pre-COVID. And so I guess this is kind of a string of unrelated thoughts, but mostly when I'm thinking about being a part of a new community, it's that like all of these communities are new because they've never existed in this way before. And so it does give us an opportunity to think about ways that we actually want to engage, that feel authentic to engage. And my hope is that we'll continue doing that even when, we are able to see each other in person again. And I froze, didn't I?
No, you're here.
Oh, I'm here. Okay. Everybody's faces are frozen, but I'm not. Okay. But it's fine because I was finished.
And we thought I was going to be the one with the challenges. Well, we're good. Thank you for that.
My internet is horrible lately, so I apologize.
That is such an important point. I actually hadn't considered that, the idea that none of us are good at this yet. We're all in the, I don't want to, I'm going to say in this together, but then I'm actually going to pull that back a little bit, because I was listening to a podcast last week and they made the point that we were always in this together, like granted we have the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic now, and that might have shattered an illusion that we weren't in it together before, but we were always in it together. So, but all this to say, I appreciate you making that point, that this is something that none of us are good at yet. Does anyone else want to take on that question?
Yeah, I just, I feel like there's an equalizer in having this format, because we all see each other in a similar way. Like, we don't see the back of someone's head. We're not like someone, we're not in a room where we're like looking at our phone, or so we see someone else looking at their phone while we're trying to have a conversation or knitting or something. We're all looking at each other. Sometimes there is a little bit of extra pressure because you feel like you have to stay engaged. And so it's kind of like we're all new at it. So it's developing relationships through this new platform. But one thing about the new community is that, I'm forming my thoughts in a way. I remember what Julissa mentioned. It makes me appreciate face-to-face and makes me long for it and miss it, and makes me realize how much I actually value it, where before I took it for granted. So now as I'm seeing new people and engaging with incoming students, and maybe students I hadn't worked with before, who are having an appointment for the first time at the Career Center, for example, I have this longing in my heart to see them in person. And what a gift that will be when I will be able to do it. so I feel like this kind of precious and sacred time to reach out in this weird way, because it will bridge us over to the time that we can actually connect in person.
Yeah.
I think I could speak on the student perspective with community and how these times are affecting socialization and how people are acclimating to Emerson, specifically as first year students. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think everyone that is here wants to be here, understands what it means to be here and what is necessary to stay on campus and stay safe. I think recalling back to my freshman year, there was the new college community, there was the new Boston community, but then there were all these little different friend groups. There was my roommates and my suite mates and then their friends and then people in my first year speech comm class. And there was all these different places that I was really struggling to manage. But I think that's what the first semester is for, is learning which ones you want to manage and which ones you kind of are like, thank you for this opportunity, had a great time, I'm gonna go. But if you can still wave and smile, and accepting for yourself and not to overload. Everyone kind of has this idea that if you don't know everyone on campus by the first month, then you're not doing a good job. If you're not president of an organization within the first week, you've failed. Take your Emerson College grandpa cap and leave. But I think really there's that pressure. And especially now, because a lot of students haven't socialized all summer. They haven't met new people all summer. I was working tap desk for the first time today, and every new student was like, hi. And I was like, thank you for saying hi. We're all like little puppies right now. And like, that's totally okay. But I think just at Emerson, it's like, we know it's okay because we're being safe. And I think it's just kind of going, the next step would be to how to balance in between being safe, but still having the social connection that makes us all artists and people. I don't know the answer to that one yet. That's just the time will tell.
I just wanted to first say that I was like freaking out with like, yes, Kyle, when you were just saying about this first semester, like not needing to rush into like all of these people have to be my friends for the rest of my college career, or I have to figure this out. Like to give yourself so much grace and patience through that, and to know that's going to be a journey of the whole semester or beyond this first semester. And I was thinking about two new communities I became a part of and what sort of led them to begin really feeling like a home base for me. And I think the two things were, first of all, I was longing this was first when I was in undergrad, I was longing for someone to just know me as a person, like to know Julie, she's the one that, I mean, in my case, like loves musical theater or whatever the thing might be. And it took so long to finally like have that identity and to be known for something. So I think that one, it just took so much time. And for me to be seen, I know that's a yearning I always have. And so if you find yourself with that yearning, I would just say you are not alone in that. And that I know for me, that's a big marker of I found my community when I feel like that's happened. And then the second thing was in new communities, when I and those around me have started to admit this is super hard and scary and I've not figured it out yet, that I know in a new community, oftentimes we like show up as though we're like so excited and we have it all together and we know exactly what we're going to study and what our careers will be. And that, at least for me, that has always felt like this gnawing like lie or something when I try to do that. And so when I've been able to finally put my guard down and to say like, actually, I don't really know. I hope I chose the right school or whatever those doubts might be. That's also when I start to feel like, okay, now I'm this is my community. This is my family in a way. And I hope those things for all of us, but especially for our new students.
I think for me, I don't know necessarily that's about joining new communities, but fortifying the ones that I have. I think in this time, it's made me seek deeper connections for the people that are already around me. Am I meeting new people? Absolutely. Am I already getting vibes? Yes. Do I already know who I want to be around and not be around? Absolutely. I sure do. That's one of my strengths. I'm pretty in tune to that. And so even as I meet new students, like I love to talk with new students in those same regards. And I think about digital space in a way. And for me personally, being a queer person of color, digital space has always been queer space and freeing space, because when I was younger and like the laws were the laws and couldn't be necessarily that out and proud because it meant your life and all that nonsense, online I could be. And so I was actually used to being more fully myself online than not, if that makes sense. The fact that I could go by my pronouns and say my name, or you could get to know me because you actually had to have a conversation with me. And it wasn't based on some appearance or whatever facade. So I think that's all I have to add there.
Thank you so much. So we've been talking a lot about community and sort of showing up for others. I want to switch topics and maybe talk a little bit about what does it look like to show up for ourselves, and even if maybe folks can talk about what that looks like for them, how that has, how they have done that, especially in these times, how they plan to do that during the semester, and then we'll come back and talk maybe a little bit more about some tools and resources that we can share with folks.
I mean, I love this time. I know that like there's a bunch of mixed feelings about it, but the fact to just pause and kind of get some of that time back and figure out how you want to redistribute your time has been pretty big for me in this pandemic, in this area. But it's also shown me the things that are possible that people said weren't possible. So like the fact that we can do Zoom and still be productive and do work is a big thing for me. Not having to necessarily travel the hour to work. So I get 2 hours back of my life, and maybe I can like connect with somebody. Like I'm still connecting with people. It just looks a little different. And of course I want to see people in person, being safe. But for me and myself, I guess because I'm an introvert as well, that it's allowed me to recharge and rethink in the ways that I could do, but because there's not all the noise in the background or that's piling on me, I can do it more peaceably.
I feel like I had like a moment of revelation now as I was sitting here and listening, and how to show up for myself. I was going through all these different like thoughts about how I have been doing that, not how I will be doing that in the future. So it's good to be asked that, you know, so you can think ahead a little bit, because I think that showing up for myself has been reactive in the past few months, that I'm like, okay, I have to take time for myself because I'm exhausted. Or like, how do you do this ahead of time? Or how do you plan it into your life ahead of time? And then, you know, on a specific topic of healing, over the, you know, considering, you know, the political and racial climate that we are going through, that we're experiencing, and identifying as a person of color, as brown. I actually went through this meditation that involved looking at your actual skin color, and like looking at your hand and looking at your shade and saying and hearing the words, "It's perfect just as it is." And I remember also thinking at a different time that, you know, what does it mean to come as I am, or to come as you are? And sometimes I don't fully know myself. And so I want to be able to say, I'm coming as I am, but I'm not so sure about all the dimensions of me yet. I'm still getting to know myself. And so to see and connecting the two, like seeing my skin and being able to say, that's a perfect shade for me, to be able to see different parts of me, you know, that are part of my personality, my temperament, my ideas, my dreams, and saying, that's perfect just the way it is. There's a lot of growth. I'm not fully perfect. We're all growing, we're all transforming, but just like where I am right now, I accept myself. And I remember also, I know I'm saying like many things at once, but you know, when we're thinking about, now I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, invisibility was one topic that I've been talking about on, you know, topics of race. And a lot of times the subject is black or white. And as I identify as someone who's brown, and I feel there's sometimes in those conversations, I feel invisible. I have to sit back and say, I'm not invisible to me. I see myself. I am in this setting, and I don't want to have too many expectations of others. I want to have expectations of myself, see myself, appreciate where I'm coming from, my background, all that I have, so that when I actually acknowledge myself and be visible to myself, I can bring even more to the table. So that's what I'm processing.
Yeah, I think similar to what a lot of folks have been saying, I'm noticing that there are a lot of complexities and contradictions in what it means to show up for myself during this time. And I think part of it is that something that I say to clients like pretty often is that if you play a game of chicken with your body will always win. Like you cannot outrun your body. And I have always believed that to be true. And I think I believed it because I had been doing it for years. And I had been getting to the point around when the pandemic started that I thought that I was not doing that anymore. I thought that I was being responsive to my body in the ways that it needed to be responded to. I thought I was showing up for my body in the way that I needed to. And I'm realizing now that there are so many structural issues, which on one hand, I'm always like, yes, like, let's talk about these structural issues. Like, no problem is individual. But it's very different when you start to really, really think about like, oh, there is an alternative. Similar to what Jamaica was saying, suddenly things that were not possible are possible now. And in realizing that, I recognize that there is like so much more that I need to be doing and so much more that I have been outrunning that it is just not possible for me to outrun in the same ways. That I am really being I would almost say forced. I want to say forced to reckon with. I also acknowledge I'm like very therapist-y, and I'm like, I could make the decision to just like not engage on any of these issues. People do that. So to not kind of like deny that there is some agency happening. But all that to say that like I am coming to a point in my life where I'm realizing that there is so much work to be done, and that the ways that I showed up for myself pre-pandemic not only were insufficient for that time, they are woefully insufficient for the time we're in now. And so I am still kind of trying to figure out what exactly that means. But what it has meant so far is a lot of me like parenting myself and being like, you can choose to not go on a walk today, but you know exactly how that's going to make you feel 6 hours from now. You can choose to be like, therapist, I'm really busy, I've got stuff to do, but you know, like, you know what the consequences are. So really trying to be compassionate with myself while also acknowledging that like all of these decisions that I'm making have consequences, and that at this point my mental health is more important to me than really most things. And so it requires a different level of prioritization, and I won't get into too much of like what that looks like specifically for me, only because I think we're going to touch on that later. But there are a lot of things that I've been trying and experimenting with and having to go back to and having to say, like, that was a good effort. There's a lot of good things that were happening, but now we've got to throw in some other stuff because it's an experiment. It's a process. It's not something I've landed on yet.
Yeah, I'm over here like shouting and stomping and like clapping and waving because yeah, y'all just really inspired me to, and I just had this just a watershed of thought just now. And one thing that I haven't been here for previously, but I'm definitely not here for now, is performative resilience, or the expectation that I need to perform resilience, if that makes sense. And I think that's especially coming up for us over and over again within this pandemic, with the expectation again that we, you know, that we deal with all these things, but that we then, you know, go to work and we're productive. And when I'm getting a text here that, you know, XYZ isn't feeling well and they may have COVID, and I'm like, but I'm in this meeting and I have to, you know, Tamia Jordan said ABCD, right? And so I just think about that as, you know, and I'm going to be a little dramatic here, and I'm going to get off my soapbox, and this is my only soapbox I'm going to do today, but I just think about it as like another system of oppression, if you will. You know, I mean, we live in a world where like water is colonized, and like resistance and rest is like, it's almost commodified to some degree, right? And I just, and we live in a society where we're sort of conflict avoidant, if you will. And I'm like, but we like have a right to feel all of these things, right? We have a right to be so angry. Like, I have a right to be mad, right? And so anyway, I'm just sitting here in the things that you just shared. It hearing you say that, it kind of got my, you know, the hair on my arm standing up again, and spidey senses going, because I'm just realizing again that, you know, even within the complexities, there's more complexities, right? It's like layer upon layer. And I deeply appreciate the opportunity to sort of take time and to think about all these things with you all. Does anyone want to add anything else before we move to, yeah?
One thing to add is, you were talking about this idea of performative resilience, that I, in the last few months, have become so painfully aware of how much I have always depended on the energy of the people around me to almost dictate how to feel, weirdly enough. I mean, sometimes I think that's oftentimes a gift that I have, is like, ooh, I can tell this person is quite stressed today. How can I, you know, whatever, work with that? Or this person's joy is actually helping me feel joyful. And so now that was taken away is like crazy. Not to have that for better, for worse, for everything. And it's really allowed me to, like, I have to get to know myself, because the energy's not there to work from anymore. So as you were saying that to me, I was just thinking about how I think that's been one of the things I've been working on during this time. And maybe eventually I will call that a gift of this time, has just been like, wow, if I can't just read everyone else's energy and take it on, I have to honor myself. I have to honor my own experience, because I'm not getting it around me anymore.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in and say that that's 100% true for me too. You know, it's weird, because to know that someone who feels the same way and has that same type of group kind of energy, in order to, at least I use it in a way to better understand myself. Where if I'm at like a birthday party, oh, everyone else is happy, cool. You know, I kind of have to play this role, for example. But without that, I think I have yet to kind of make it to that point of identifying feelings for my own greater good and trying to figure out, what do I do for me? I'm not there yet. And I don't know necessarily yet how to support myself. And I'm still learning. I think to make a joke about something that's kind of sad is, I mean, fixing the Wi-Fi by myself is something, and it's like little baby steps. I recently learned like a little self-care tip that is, if you get a plant and if you name the plant yourself, so if I got a succulent and I named the succulent Kyle, every time I water it, every time I give it sunlight and I watch it grow, I'm watching myself grow. And it's a way of, and it's a, sorry, it's a way of growing along with the plant, because if you give it self-care, if you can care for a plant, you can care for yourself. And I don't have a plant named Kyle yet, but I hope I will soon.
You will have a plant to name Kyle, because I'm bringing you a plant, okay? And we're gonna name it Kyle. And we're all gonna get plants and we're gonna name them after ourselves. That is so incredible. That is so beautiful. And that's also just, I'm not even kidding, I'm getting emotional. That is a great segue, because I want, before we pull other folks in and wrap this up, I want to talk about, what are those tools? What are the ways that you hold yourself? What are the things that you have found to show up for yourself, to care for yourself? But if you can talk very sort of tangible things that folks can take with them, and then, yeah. I'm all emotional.
I think about this so much. I would say my top things, and if anybody has seen any of these talks before, you'll have already heard about this. I'm a huge fan of a moody walk, which is when I have playlists. Like, I have an angry playlist, I have a Black Power playlist, I have a sad playlist, and I go into Franklin Park, and I have these those mirrored sunglasses so nobody can see me, and I have my mask on and I just weep. It's great. I can't tell if I'm frozen.
We can hear you, but your body is frozen.
Well, I hope I'm frozen in a good position.
It's a good moody walk position. Yeah.
And so I love a moody walk. I also have been trying to get back into yoga. I have a yoga teacher who I love, who is very intuitive based. She does not force you into any positions, and she does do Zoom. And so it's really a time for you to just process and process through the body, which is a way that I have struggled with throughout my life. To really, I've been such a cognitive processor my whole life. So moving into some more body-based work has been really important to me, and also very hard for me to kind of stay accountable to, which brings me to the fact that, like, a lot of my self-care is also being very open with other people about what stuff is working for me, so that they can also prompt me in times where, if I'm sobbing after watching, a commercial on Hulu, somebody can check in and be like, hey, like, have you been doing yoga? I know that that's really helpful for you in processing your emotions. Is there like a time that might be good for you to schedule a class? And then the last thing that I'll say, and I had it and then I lost it. It's just finding I process all the time. It's a beautiful gift and a terrible curse. And I've been finding different ways to do that. So listening to podcasts that are very emotional, but help me think through things that I'm experiencing in a way that I don't always have the mental energy to create from scratch, but kind of having that scaffolding from someone else. And so Where Should We Begin has been really helpful for that, which is a podcast. And then also I listen to Binge Mode, which is a great podcast. And while it doesn't seem like it'll be very emotional, has a lot of emotional content that I appreciate. And then just good old journaling. I mean, I wouldn't be the therapist I am if I didn't also shout out for journaling. I hate doing it. Sometimes I literally put it off for hours, and then I do it and I'm like, well, that was 20 minutes that I could have done 4 hours ago. and I would just be done now. But those are some concrete things. And if anybody is interested in how you could get started with any of these concrete things, ECAPS talks a lot about all of these on our Instagram and our YouTube. So I will pop that in the chat. But if y'all are interested in taking some of my practical tips, you can find a lot of prompts to do that in our social media.
Jaleesa, I want to just say that the mood walks thing you suggested is really cool. And while Julie was talking, I had these words pop up in my head that was like, you know, validate yourself. Like sometimes we oppress ourselves. Like, so I think that it came in earlier, like we're allowed to feel certain ways. We sometimes we don't want to allow ourselves to feel crappy or to acknowledge the crappiness that we feel. So I think the mood walks is very validating. And it actually helps us get through that mood. Gosh, I'm just thinking of so many different things, you know? Another thing too that I was thinking about is that maybe the one thing that I wanna do is connect with someone or a couple people that I feel like they know me really well, like my people, my real people, my tribe, and ask them, what do you know about me? What do I talk about that when I do talk about it, I light up and I like have energy, and I want to know what those things are that are from another person's point of view, so I can do that more, because other people might know something about me a little bit more than I know about myself. So I think I want to check in with some folks and then have that become more of a part of my life now, because it's like I feel like I have a lot to do and a lot of work to do and a lot of tasks and a lot of strategies that I have to lay out and plan for the year. But I also want to make time for myself in a way that refreshes me. And I think that if a person that cares for me knows the things that refresh me, they can remind me what they are, you know, and that's part of community too, you know.
Personally, I'm a creative by nature, and I think that in this time, I've definitely returned to the things that I love because there is time. So things like writing, playing music. I was actually just painting before this. Um, for me, I know that it's very important to stimulate my mind and my body at the same time. So walks definitely help. But something that I do every day is cook for myself, because I know when I eat well, I feel better, but also too the ways in which I cook. I'm that person. I was like, okay, what do we got up in the pantry? I'm gonna throw these together and we go see what happens. And because I know I consider myself a fairly well cook, I know that it's gonna turn out all right. Kind of follow my nose. And I don't know. I think for me, food and my relationship to food has evolved over the years in such beautiful, beautiful ways that I acknowledge that that's how I was fed early in my family in a way, and that's how love was shown. And so that's also how I show love to myself and honoring that.
I just want to add one thing just to what Jam said. Well, two things. First, the first thing I had this vision of like Jam in his home doing art, and like art in all of the different ways, and that just, it made me smile. And then second, lately I've been cooking a lot for myself, and when I'm cooking, I meditate on the idea that I am literally like nourishing myself. Like this is holy for me. This is a spiritual practice. And I bought my first apron, and Jaleesa, you were my inspiration for that. And it's because when I'm cooking, I want to just sort of be in that space and recognize that that is what's happening. So that has been something that I have been doing. Wanted to piggyback on that. You want to go, Kyle?
Oh, I was unmuted. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I really second a lot of what was said here, and I think like tangible resources from the student perspective, a lot of the times is Boston. and grabbing someone you can trust and exploring because it is new. And I'm a very big person on creating memories. And if you can have a happy memory associated with anything really, whether that's growing across the bridge from South Station, stumbling upon like the Hood milk bottle, and at least you did that with someone that you can care about, and every time you walk past it or you think about it, probably when you buy milk, you'll be like, I did this with my friend, and it reminds you everywhere that you're not alone, and that there are so many different things that can make a mind spiral positively. I know spiral is a lot of times used negatively, but you can go on like this memory chain of just all these good things and stay within that space and, cruise down that highway because it's important.
I love that, Kyle. That's great. Two things I've been thinking about. Also, I realized I've started like everything I said with two things. Today's like the day of my two things. So here are my two things right now. First of all, the current context of life being like zoom, 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 one after the other has been very prominent to me. And there's just been this like need for me to take some sort of like mini breath in between each little commitment, each meeting, each class, whatever it might be. And so that's been one like very tangible thing for me, has been if I have like back-to-back commitments, to say like, I'm going to be 1 minute late for that so that I can take a minute to just close my eyes and be like, that meeting has ended. This new one's about to begin. Okay, and then we go. Because normally there would be like a walk down a hallway. There would be a walk across the common. There would be something to do that. So I've needed like a teeny practice to close out and then open up a space. So that was in my mind of a tangible way to hold myself. And then the other was, I wanted to introduce briefly, and for many of you this will be familiar, but the idea of a self-hold as a really simple yet powerful way to hold and hug and support yourself, especially in a moment when like anxiety might really be rising for you, or you might find yourself almost disconnected from your body, from yourself, and you need to reground again or recenter again. So the idea of a self-hold is when I thought that if you feel comfortable just giving it a try in this moment, you can do so. And there's two of them that I've been familiar with, and I bet there's even more. But the two that I've been familiarizing myself with are to place one hand on your forehead. And if you feel comfortable, just go ahead and do that. And to place the other one on your heart. And you may only have 1 second, and see what feels best for you. You could do either hand, either place. And just take a moment and just hold your head. Just hold that head that is so full. And for a moment, just hold that heart that is beating so well and that is keeping you alive. Take just a moment and just hold that for a moment. Then the second one is once again having one hand on your heart. I think for me, I'll switch up my hand. One hand on your heart, and then the other hand to place it on your belly area, your stomach. And once again, just take a moment in the middle of whatever it is you might be doing to just feel that heart. That is such a gift to this world. And to feel that stomach that can really be the energy center of a lot of wisdom, yearnings coming there. So once again, we'll just take a moment and just hold that. So I know for me that idea of a self-hold is just a simple, tangible way to really hold on to ourselves and support ourselves.
Thank you so much, Julie. Let's see. So I think that we're going to just go ahead and wrap up now. And I just want to take a minute to thank each of you for your comments, your wisdom. This was just incredibly powerful. And for folks who are going to be viewing this later, I guess I invite you to sort of, after this conversation, to take a moment and to think about what does it mean for you to hold complexity, to sort of recognize nuance, and what does complexity look like in your relationships, and what can folks do for you to honor your whole self as a complex and whole being. Think about those things, and we had such a great time chatting, and we hope that you will join us for our next Tough Topic Tuesday, which will be on a Tuesday. We don't have the date yet, but we will have it soon. Follow us at Emerson Intercultural on Instagram or Facebook, and Julie, you all are CSL Emerson. So at
CSL Emerson, yep.
And then ECAPS Pals. ECAPS Pals. And Emmy, what's the CDC?
I think it's EC Career Center or EC Careers, but we're definitely on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and it's in my signature. So email me, I'll make sure I get that. But if you look up Emerson College Career Center or Career Development Center, you'll find us.
And follow Kyle and all the things that Kyle does. Kyle is everywhere, literally. And Kyle will soon also be a plant on a shelf in Kyle's room, because we're going to make sure that happens.
Can I just say I named my fake plants? I didn't have any windows in my office, so I got fake plants and I named them too. I just feel like I just want to care for those things.
I always name my plants, but I've never named them after myself. So that's a whole new level.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think like the first thing, like after like I said that, because like it was something that like I had read and I kind of took it to like next level. And I was like, well, what if the plant dies? So I think the best advice I came up with that. I think the best advice is don't let it die. You know, don't give it up for you. Don't give yourself up like that. But then also, I mean, I'm all about, you know, like nature giving kind of hints, you know, pictures falling down of friends that I need to let go, or things getting lost that I shouldn't need to find again. Yeah. So I think like if something like that happens, what necessarily do I need to remove from my life? Let's repot. Let's get a new plant. Take two. Let's go.
That's awesome.
Rebirth.
That is that.
Amen. Yes.
That is my
fresh starts.
Sad thought.
Mm-hmm. Love it, Kyle. Happy to meet you. By the way.
Hi. It's a pleasure to meet you.
I haven't met you before.
Oh, these two meeting. That is the best.